We've just been lied to about everything. We're just lied to every day.
We've
I,
been lied to. Welcome to today's show where I'm interviewing Dave Mack from No Carb Life here on YouTube. You're going to love what he has to share with you. He's got a great story about the reasons why he chose carnivore in 2022, some of what he's learned along his way. He lives in Japan, so we talk a little bit about getting the proper foods and what he needs in a society like that that's culturally a little bit different than what you might be used to. I'm Jackie Elmer, thrilled to bring this interview to you. Make sure you grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com, has my carnivore shopping list simplified, and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Leave me a comment and let me know what you've liked best about this interview with Dave Mack. Dave Mack, welcome to the show. So tell me, how did you find the carnivore diet?
so it's happened over a period of years. Like I've been on ketogenic diets on and off over 2 decades. But June 2022, I saw my doctor, and my doctor told me, you have prediabetes and you have an alcohol problem. And spoiler alert, I knew I had an alcohol problem, but hearing it from the doctor made it feel a bit more real and a bit more immediate and a bit more like I had to do something about it. And the doctor wanted to put me on some medication to control the drinking. And I'm not a fan of medication at all. And so I asked him to give me some time to see if I could do something myself. And he agreed. And the having been on ketogenic diets over the last 2 decades, one thing I knew was that if I was eating low carb, I would have a lot more self-control. That was one of the things that changed almost immediately for me every time I went on low carb keto diet was I would just get this feeling of self-control. I wouldn't be as impulsive. I wouldn't be as likely to go to the shop and buy the junk and that kind of thing. So I thought, okay, well, I'll try and do keto. So I jumped straight on keto. And alcohol is not an easy thing to give up, especially when you're trying to give it up at the same time as you're giving up carbohydrates. So I had to do a little bit of work outside of the eating as well, and that involved making sure that I didn't walk past any of my triggers or go anywhere near anything that would trigger me. So, not walking past a restaurant where there's people outside drinking wine, not walking past a convenience store where I would buy a beer on the way back to the station every night after work, that kind of thing. So I changed my routines around, changed my habits around, and I was able to get off, of course, the carbohydrates, but also the alcohol by sticking to keto. The trouble was, now that I was doing keto, I was also, of course, eating some non-starchy veggies with every meal. And eating those non-starchy veggies from every meal led me to a discovery. I realized that plants were actually trying to kill me because I would find myself in the bathroom immediately after eating a meal that included things like red peppers and yellow peppers and leafy greens and stuff like that. And so I had to start looking around what's causing this. And of course, at first I'm thinking, well, maybe it's because I'm eating more meat. Maybe it's because I'm eating cheese. Maybe it's because, this, that, the other. But as I started to search, I found a lot of videos talking about things like plants are trying to kill you. These particular plants are even worse than these ones, and all this kind of thing. And nightshades being singled out as one of them, ones that were real gut irritants. And so I'm like, well, there's all these people eating only meat or only meat and eggs. And I'm not exactly married to the veggies. So maybe I'll just cut them out and see what happens. And I cut them out, and the rest is history. So I've been carnivore ever since.
Wow, that is an amazing story. And it sounds like, tell us this. Tell us a little bit about maybe your stops, starts, and falters during that. It sounds like you kind of went cold turkey in terms of giving up the carbs. And I'm assuming by that you mean ultra processed foods and the alcohol. How was that? Did you just flip a switch and it worked great? Or tell us about
Uh,
that.
so giving everything up cold turkey was I didn't suffer any kind of effects like keto flus and all that kind of thing. And I think that's because over a period of 2 decades plus, I've been on and off keto. And so I've basically trained my body to not or to be in ketosis. Like I think my body pretty much knows what's going on. So it's like, oh, we're doing this again. Okay, no worries. So I didn't really go through any of that. Um, but the the toughest thing really was the psychological aspect of the triggering nature of seeing a food or seeing, a drink or something like that. So just avoiding that at all costs and not doing, basically changing everything so I wasn't reminded of the things during the day, was what helped me. And I think when you go keto, um, one of the things that happens very quickly is your mind starts to get a lot clearer. You start to kind of be able to think about things in it's kind of a more objective way. You get less emotional about things and that kind of thing. Like you're always on a where when you're stuffing sugar down your face, when you're eating ultra processed foods all the time and drinking alcohol, you're always on this razor's edge. You're gonna react. You're gonna, and so I was able to think more clearly about stuff, and I think that clarity of thought probably helped me a lot in the early days too, to kind of avoid even putting myself in the situation where I'd feel like, I want to have a drink today.
How did that go with your social life?
Um, the first thing is I don't have that much of a social life, especially not at that time, because this was kind of towards the tail end of COVID and things like that. But also, I was, my work had recently changed, so I was doing a lot extra work and that kind of thing. But I did contact my friends at the time, and that were most likely to invite me out or invite me to a dinner party. And I just said to them, please don't send me any invitations. Because so many times in the past, I've gone, you know what? I'm going to go back to keto because I've put on too much weight. And I'd go keto for a day, and then a friend would say, hey, we're having dinner at my place, on Sunday night, come round. And I'd be like, foiled again. And, I'd be like, oh, I can do it. I can just go to their place and enjoy myself and not have a drink and that kind of thing. But as soon as I'm there, I'm like, I'm having a drink, you know. So I just said, don't invite me out. I'm going to be available for the next couple of months. I've got some stuff with alcohol to work on, and you know, it worked out really well as far as I didn't get any of those invitations, so that got rid of that temptation. And it turned out, 2, 3 months in, one of my good friends contacted me and said, "Look, I haven't seen you for a while. You want to catch up?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm a bit worried about, the temptation thing." And she was like, "Look, let's go out to a local pub. We'll both have non-alcohol beer, and we'll just drink non-alcohol beers all night, and see how things go." And I'm like, "All right," and it was great. You know, she had the same non-alcohol beer with me, and we were able to communicate without getting, you know, crazily drunk. We were going to forget all the conversation we had anyway. And yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, it's things just kind of worked out this time.
It is amazing what you brought up in terms of, just even cutting out the carbs, how it clears out your mind. And it really does give you such, let me not speak for everybody, but I can relate to exactly what you're saying. All of a sudden, it's like I have more clarity of thought. I have more clarity of decision making. I can be more discerning. I can think ahead to, how is this really going to serve me?
Mhm.
All of that. And it's certainly the same with alcohol. I did the same. I think it was about 22 when I quit drinking and then I introduced it back in. I do have good discipline, so I can be a moderator. I know not, can you moderate or do you have to abstain? People are in different places with that. I can moderate, but I find over time, as I've cut out more and more, I just don't even have the desire. I don't even have the desire. I can go into the store and I can buy wine for somebody else. None of that triggers me. I can go sit with somebody. I can go to happy hour with people. I can do all of that. I'm not tempted. I'm not triggered. In
Mhm.
fact, more and more over time for me, it just didn't even taste good anymore. I would have one glass of
Mm.
wine and it just lost its, oomph, you know?
Yeah, I find that what I've found personally is that there is a point with both the sugar and with the alcohol and the ultra processed foods, there's a point where you get to where there's no longer an emotional connection there. And you kind of don't see it anymore as food or something that you partake in. And so yeah, I could happily walk into a liquor shop now and buy a bottle of wine for a friend and take it to a party at their house and just give it to them and not feel anything about it. I could sit in a bar and drink a glass of water or drink a glass of iced coffee and have proper conversations with people. I'd be the only one having the proper conversations because they're all getting drunk,
Yeah.
but have actual interactions and not feel anything like not ever have that kind of like, come on, drink me. You know you want to. Like that would just never happen anymore.
You've interviewed a lot of people, and I don't know if this conversation comes up for you. I know it didn't on our particular call, but is there a good percentage who also gave up alcohol in this process with carnivore that you've experienced?
I would say that's the majority. But most also the majority are not people that were in a position that I was where I couldn't stop. But yeah, the majority give it up, and even the people that continue to drink a bit of alcohol, they don't drink it a lot because I think people have mentioned to me, and it has been my experience in the past when I've done keto, um, and kept the alcohol in, is that when you're in ketosis and when you're not eating as much filler food like carbohydrates, fiber, whatever, um, alcohol affects you differently and it affects you much more quickly. So, yeah, I think even the people that continue with the drinking, which is the minority, they don't drink that much anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly not on the carnivore diet. It's,
Mm.
it's not included, but I know there are a lot of people who have a cheat this or a cheat that or whatever. So,
Mm.
which brings me to a question for you. What does carnivore mean to you? How do you define that for yourself?
For me, it's typically one meal a day. Typically up to a pound of beef a day. That could be ground beef or just they have kind of sliced beef in Japan. So they do have steaks, but it's harder to get, or there's less of them. because in Japan they use chopsticks. So most of the beef is sold as sliced beef, so it's easy to pick up with chopsticks, right? It's not very dainty to eat a steak with chopsticks. So um yeah, so I've got that beef and then maybe 6 to 10 eggs scrambled in a day. And that's, as I say, one meal a day. Um Mostly for breakfast, but I've started pushing it later because I've often woken up and felt like I'm not hungry. I just want to get into things or whatever, So I'll have a black coffee and I'll get into my work. Um, Coffee is still a thing for me. Um, Still way too much, but I kind of look at it like this. I've given up so much, you know, the fact that I keep coffee in there just is a small thing. So I still have the black coffee. I enjoy the smell. I enjoy the process of drinking the coffee and all that kind of thing. So yeah, that stays.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I haven't totally. I'm not 100% carnivore. I'm more animal based. Although it's funny, with every week that goes by, I find myself less enthralled with different things. So we'll see. I've gone on and off since the 1st of July with coffee. Coffee yes, coffee no, coffee yes, coffee no. I had coffee yesterday. I felt great. Like it didn't bother me. Occasionally it bothers me. So I'm just really trying to use my own inner compass, my own intuition to say, is this serving me or is it not serving me? And if it doesn't, then I'll eliminate it. And if it, if it keeps serving me and I feel fine, then I'll weigh in on whether or not I want to do that. There's definitely those different camps. I mean, Dr. Chafee doesn't drink coffee at all. Dr. Ken Berry does. I mean, and not that I don't have to follow anybody else's lead. For me, it's how I feel, how I act, how my body is, the longevity of all of that. So that's the only person I'm competing with is myself. So I don't need to
Mm.
get caught up in everybody else's dogma about right or wrong.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to be. Um, so I understand there's kind of, if we're the definitionally, if we're talking about a carnivore diet, Bart Kay's mentioned this before, like a hyper-carnivore diet is really anything above 70% animal products. But I'm not a fan of the purity tests that go around carnivore that are like, well, if you have coffee, you're not carnivore, you're out of the club, hand your card back in, that kind of thing. It's like we're all on our own kind of path. If someone adds some fermented food back in, or someone adds whatever it is, coffee, whatever, at some point, then, so be it. As long as they're doing okay, then that's fine.
Right. Did you have specific influencers, for lack of a better word, the doctors? Was there anyone who you started seeing a lot of and started following?
Yeah. So when I first, um, the first doctors I found, um, the main video I found when I decided to ditch the veggies was a Ken Berry video. But following that, I kind of got into Sten Ekberg and Eric Berg. So they were kind of my real introduction. And that's why I was also kind of focused on intermittent fasting at the beginning, because Sten Ekberg talks a lot about intermittent fasting. And now that I was eating meat and eggs only, that intermittent fasting became easy. And I was like, this is crazy easy that I can just eat one meal and not even think about food again for the rest of the day. And so that's just the pattern I've got into. So it was them, and then I I discovered Sean Baker, and I like Sean Baker because he does the interviews as well, right? So you hear from him, but it's interactions with other carnivores, right? And and of course Ken Berry. And at the time, another person that was doing interviews was a guy called Joey Schwartz. So I watched a lot of Joey Schwartz at the time as well because yeah, same kind of thing. He was just getting carnivores on, like the 40-year carnivore, Rick Rodriguez, people like that.
And what is it about the interviews that intrigues you? The stories, the
The ones I was watching, it was
yeah,
just that there's so many people, all from different parts of the world, all different walks of life, all reporting the same kind of results. So there must be something to this. And so it's very reinforcing. It's like you're on the right track. Okay, we're on the next day. Here's another interview. You're on the right track. You're on the right track. That kind of thing.
yeah. It is. It's funny. I watch at least one video a day just to keep me on task. I pick up something new. I hear somebody's story. It inspires me. I mean, there's always at least one a day, but there's definitely always something that reaffirms, validates. It's funny. I always say validation is for parking. It's not like we need anybody else to validate us, but it just really can be even a pat on the back that we're headed in the right direction.
And sometimes you'll be watching an interview or listening to an interview, and the interviewee will mention something that happened to them, and you'll go, "Oh, that happened to me too," but I just have been taking it for granted or didn't really, what didn't consciously notice it this whole time. You know,
Yeah.
so it might be, for example, clearer thinking, or it might be a particular type of headache goes away, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I will tell you, I had to laugh. I met Scott Everson at the Steak and Butter Gang meetup. That's the first time, honestly, that's the first, I had heard of Meat Stock, but I had just recently heard of any of these meetups. And the Steak and Butter Gang one came up, and I thought, I want to get out of Arizona in July. I'm going to go to Bozeman, Montana, where it's cool and beautiful and all the rest of it. So I signed up for that. And I just ran into Scott on a break, a long break. It was between the end and the VIP thing. And we got to talking, and I was laughing, thinking, I can't believe the authenticity of people, the stuff that they share, the vulnerability. And I kept thinking, I'm sitting here talking to a dude who I've never met before, and I'm sharing some of the most vulnerable, intimate stuff that's going on within my body and all of this. But it felt so good and freeing and just kind of natural. It's like we all have bodily functions and all the rest of it. And he, of course, was sharing his story. And I think you know his story. I know you've interviewed him. I watched that. He's got quite a story, but it's so interesting. The community is amazing.
Mm. I think those kind of meetups and the carnivore community, it's very important for people to be involved in those where they can. There's nothing quite like a feeling of being in a room with 200, 300, 400 people who just understand. And no one's ever going to ask you the question, what, you mean no vegetables? Not even broccoli? Everyone just kind of gets it. And like you say, you can just talk about things freely because everyone's in the same boat and they know why you're talking about these things. So there's no judgment.
Yeah. So I know you're a speaker this next year at Meatstock 2026. Were you at 25 also? Or have you been to
No,
others?
I wasn't. No, I haven't
Okay,
been to any. Yeah. So this will be my first meat stock. Yeah. Yeah. I'm
great.
looking forward to it. I've I've never been that deep into the United States either. That my experience with the United States is just Los Angeles and Las Vegas. So
Oh,
yeah, going into the Smoky Mountains is going to be a big adventure for me.
it's gorgeous. I used to live in Nashville. I lived in Nashville for 3 years, and then my daughter lived there. So I've spent a lot of time. I actually was in the airline industry, and my sales territory was all over there, Knoxville, that whole entire area. It's been a while, but it is breathtaking and
Mm.
really enjoyable. So if you can come early or stay late and take advantage of it, I highly recommend that you do that because it's beautiful, beautiful area, delightful
Mm.
people.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward
Hey,
to it.
Wellness Warrior, if you're even thinking about carnivore, you've got to get to Meatstock 2026 in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. The top doctors, experts, and real life success stories all in one place. Incredible meals, amazing community, and conversations that will change your health journey, just like it did mine when I attended my first Steak and Butter Gang meetup in Montana. Use my referral code LTL to get $50 off any ticket package of your choice. Go to meatstockconvention.com. I'll be there and I hope to see you there too. So drop a comment if you're attending as we will be meeting up with the Lower Toxic Life Warriors. You can reach out to me also by going to peakperformancehabits.com/contacts. So tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel and what prompted you starting that. And you definitely do the interview process, although last night I did catch your live. So I saw that you did a live. That was
Yeah.
kind of fun. So tell us about your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so my YouTube channel started a bit differently to a lot of carnivores out there. So a lot of people start their YouTube channel when they start carnivore as kind of an accountability thing, or it's a record of this is where I was, so I can look back and go, wow, I've changed a lot, or, uh, these conditions have gone, that kind of thing. I'd been carnivore for about 4 months before I started my YouTube channel. And I started it because I was kind of angry. And I was angry because all these things had got better. And I was kind of thinking, we've just been lied to about everything. We're just lied to every day. I think I'd probably also just seen a commercial on TV for some junk food or something, So I was extra angry. But yeah, just I was frustrated, and I want to put my voice out there as well, and specifically, I'd been watching all these interviews, and I was like, all these people are saying this improved their lives in similar ways. I just want to put my voice out there and say, me too. And so I started putting videos up and talking about it, and I started doing interviews just as a way of networking in the carnival community. Because I'm in Japan, I'm isolated. It's not like there's any meetups going to happen in Japan. So, I thought I'd try and network. And turns out I really enjoyed talking to people about carnivore and their stories and getting to know them and stuff. And so I just kept doing it. And it's just built from there.
Yeah, well, you have a great channel. I love that. I feel the same way. I am all kinds of mad. I feel like I did all the right things that I'd been told were, the superfoods and all of that. And I wasn't eating ultra processed foods, on. And then it's like all that food science is just food baloney, you know?
Right. And so the thing that really gets me is the kind of sanctimonious attitude of a lot of medical professionals when they're talking about someone who's doing a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet is they're all like, look at these, you know these conspiracy theorists or whatever, whatever pejorative they want to give. Look at these idiots, um, blah, blah, blah. And it just really frustrates me because they want to lump us all into this barrel of crazy nut jobs because we're going, our body feels better than it ever has, following, you know, following the opposite advice of what you give us. And you want to kind of talk down to us because you studied at university for 5, 10 years, whatever, and you can regurgitate all the information that you've picked up from textbooks that were written however long ago. But we're responding to our body, and we're going, yeah, we feel better eating this way. So yeah, the medical professionals kind of. drive me up the wall a little bit.
Yeah, me too. I fortunately my mom raised me to be a skeptic and ask a lot of questions, and I got marched out of a lot of doctors' offices as a kid. I got marched out of my very first pediatrician office with my son because he thought I was questioning his authority too much. It's like I have a 2-month-old baby. I'm just asking you questions. And, I thought, look, if you can't answer a mom's basic questions about caring for her baby, we are not the right fit. But I've butted heads a lot of times with my stance. I haven't done fluoride my whole life, just a lot of stuff.
Mm.
So I've been very skeptical for a long time. But at the same time, there were so many things that I did buy into, like vegetables and almond flour, this and so many things like that, because it seemed logical to me. And
Mm.
so I get mad at myself too sometimes, thinking, why didn't I research even that further? Why didn't I really take the time to weigh in on how my body feels? Because now looking back, it's like I can tell, like cauliflower and broccoli and cruciferous vegetables and a lot of that, they didn't really agree with my stomach. Like I would
Mhm.
get the rumbles or feel bloated or whatever. And I just didn't pay attention, you know?
Right. And that's the problem with the way everyone lives now is it's almost like an incentive to not pay attention because there's so much out there, so much marketing, so much of just, the academia out there telling us that no, though the cauliflower is the right thing to eat, right? So you kind of you have no reason to doubt it, right?
Yeah. Or, what I hear all the time, I'm sure you do too, is that carnivore or keto, well, it's not scientifically tested. It's like, it's just anecdotal. It's like, well, I don't know. I feel like I'm the best scientist of my own body.
Mhm.
If you're going to sit there and tell me that I should be eating this, when I do eat it, I feel terrible. I have issues. My digestive system, everything gets out of whack. But you're going to tell me that I should listen to science versus my own body? That's crazy.
Yes, 100% agree. Yeah, it's your body is it tells you when you feel bad, it tells you when you feel good, and every other species of animal knows if I eat that, I feel bad. If I eat that, I feel good. And so they eat the stuff that makes them feel good and they thrive. So maybe we should take a leaf out of their book. You know,
Completely.
I kind of look at it like this, we are the only species that doesn't know what to eat. You know, we are the only species that thinks that we need to invent our own food. But we're also the only species that have wallets. And there's probably something to that.
We're also the only species that think we need an app for everything we do. We need an app to tell us if we're getting enough sleep. We need an app to tell us, when to do this or when to do that, or if we've gotten in enough steps or all the rest of it. And I kind of along with all of this, I'm revolting on so much of that. I gave up my Apple Watch. I mean, so many things because it's like I don't need to constantly be reminded. I know what I need to do. I know if I've gone
Mm.
out walking. I know if I've lifted weights. I know if I've done that. I don't need something to tell me, stand up, or, it's been 50 minutes since you last were standing, or any of that kind of stuff. I mean, and again, I think back with clearing out the brain and the brain fog, to me, I feel like so much of this has come back to me naturally to know what to do for my own self without having to be reminded by anything else.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Apple Watch. I had to turn off some of the notifications on my Apple Watch because I remember there was one day after I first got it, I'm like really focused on the work that I'm doing. I'm typing away, really focused on it, and I must have like just everything else was excluded from my mind. I'm just focused on getting this task done. And then, I don't know, 3 hours into it, I suddenly realized I really need to go to the bathroom. And I stood up to go to the bathroom. And as I stood up, my Apple Watch went, "You did
You
it!
did it.
You stood up," or something like that. And I'm like, humanity is in trouble. If we're at the point where an Apple Watch is congratulating us for standing up,
you
it's
know,
things have got
yeah.
really bad.
My daughter, she was about 27, 28 when she said this to me, but she had quit wearing hers. And I said, hey, because we were doing little challenges back and forth and doing all this. And I said, I noticed you're not wearing your Apple Watch. And she was like, yeah, I finally decided I didn't need one other thing to make me feel bad about myself or something that I did or didn't do. And I certainly don't need it to be my watch. I was like, oh, touche.
Yeah,
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 it was
yeah,
brilliant. So
yeah.
have you found any of your friends? Have you converted? I don't really like to use that word, but for lack of thinking of anything else, have others followed in your path? Family members?
No, they all think I'm weird. So I have had people around me who kind of they accept that I'm feeling better. They're happy for me, but no one's like, oh, I want to try that too. So everyone's kind of still in that mode of kind of nodding and backing away slowly while maintaining eye contact, just in case I jump or something. It's, you know.
You mentioned living in Japan, and I've heard from a few others that it can be, and you mentioned just also like eating with chopsticks and the steaks and stuff. How have you found that to be for you overall with getting the products and the quality of what you want for your diet?
It's pretty easy to be carnivore in Japan. Um, Everyone's got this image of Japan as this, plant-based society, and they're all healthy because they're eating rice and veggies and stuff. But they eat a lot of meat, and there are a lot of barbecue, Korean barbecue restaurants here, which are called Yakiniku restaurants, and they you just go there and eat meat. You barbecue the meat at your table. Um, and it's normal to go to restaurants here and just order a steak or grill a steak at your table and that kind of thing. So it's pretty easy to get by. Um, and also, even if it wasn't, I can easily get away with it because I'm a foreigner. Right, because they're always going to go, oh, he's a foreigner, he's weird anyway. So if I order just meat, don't give me any sauces, don't give me this, don't give me that, they're just going to go, oh, okay, and do it. It'd be more difficult for a Japanese person in Japan to be carnivore because things like rice and while they do eat a lot of meat, things like rice and plant-based products are cultural as well in Japan. So you kind of stand out like a sore thumb if you were to say, "Oh no, I'm not having any rice at the moment," or "Please don't give me any of that. I'll just have the meat," or something. You would stand out, and it's culturally not really appropriate to stand out in Japan.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes
Mm.
sense. What was your diet like growing up? And tell us a little bit about that. I think you're from Australia originally, correct?
Yeah, so born in Scotland,
Oh,
raised in Australia. So I've got the Australian accent, but unfortunately, the suntan didn't stick. I've still got the Scottish skin. So, uh, you know, food was okay growing up. It was kind of, I grew up in the 80s, you know, and that's before food got really bad.
right.
Like food got really bad. Um, but so it was like the kind of meat and three veg kind of dinners, that kind of thing. And there was junk in there as well, but it was kind of by today's standards, it was not that bad. Um, so I was always reasonably healthy, but I did have an addiction to carbs. And how do I know that? Because I could sit in front of the TV with a loaf of bread and just eat it piece by piece by piece by piece by piece and go through and when I say a loaf of bread, I'm not talking like a loaf of sourdough or something like that. I'm basically like Wonder White, you know. And And I would eat everything, crusts, everything, you know. I was never someone who disliked crusts as a kid or anything like that. So I ate everything. And as a result, I always had a pot belly. And so, yeah, as a kid, I could never understand why have I got a pot belly? I'm eating all the right things. I don't eat fat. I don't eat blah, 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 blah. And yeah, it turns out bread was one of the culprits, you know, and other carbs too, but bread was one of the main ones. And, you know, I had really bad acne as a kid when I was in my teens. And I kind of think back and it's like they always tell you don't eat oily stuff. You know, don't eat oily stuff and make sure you keep your face super clean and all that kind of thing, you know. And looking back, I'm thinking that's the wrong advice as well. It should be get sugar and anything that becomes sugar out of your diet, and probably the acne is going to go away. So,
I think
like
you're right. Yeah.
all these kids with self-esteem issues that get worse because they get acne on their face, you know, a lot of that could be alleviated by eating a proper diet.
Yeah. And
But
it's,
then,
I mean, that's what fuels your skin, your hair, your nails. I mean, we know all of that. So it makes sense, right?
yeah, but then if we were to tell people, you know, get all that stuff out of your diet, there's a lot of topical creams that won't get sold anymore, you know? So it's,
It's always follow the dollar.
hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I was trying to think, any particular advice you would have for anyone who's considering this, just getting started, maybe struggling? What are your
Hmm.
thoughts on that?
So for anyone that's at the beginning stages of carnivore, I would say the most important thing is to take one day at a time, not go past one day. So one of the problems when we're trying to make change in our lives, whether that be exercise, diets, habits at work, anything like that, is when you start doing it, we've got a tendency to project out to the future. And when we do that, we start thinking to ourselves, how am I going to continue to do this for the next 10 years? How am I going to do this for the next 6 months? How am I going to do this for the rest of my life? And once you start doing that, you then start questioning yourself and you start looking back at your past history of not being successful doing particular things. And you start saying, I'm never going to be able to do this. There's just no way. I won't be able to do this at all. And when you get to that point, then you start going, if I can't do this for another 6 months, if I can't do this for another 2 years, if I can't do this for the rest of my life, what's the point of doing it at all? And then you get into that cycle and you go, you know what? I'm just going to have that donut. I'm just going to have this. I'm just going to have that. And then you're back to square one again. And that cycle just repeats and repeats and repeats. And so what I would say is take a day at a time. Don't look out to the long term because as soon as you look out long term, you start questioning yourself and you're more likely to give up. Take a day at a time and just focus, like let's say it's day one, just focus on day one, getting through the day without cheating. Get to bed that night without cheating. And then day two, you wake up and you have two thoughts immediately upon waking up. I feel better and I did it, right? And what that does is that turns your resolve up a notch, right? So you're a bit stronger on day two. Now, on day two, all you have to think about is getting through day two. And then same thing happens when you wake up on day three. It's like, I feel better. I did it. Resolve goes up again a little bit. And now you just have to focus on the next day. And you just keep repeating that process. Don't think about, am I going to be able to do this for another month? Any of that. And then for everyone, it's different. It might be a weekend, it might be 2 weeks, and it might be a month, it might be 6 months. But at some point, you're no longer going to be thinking about, I just need to get through today. It's going to be your normal. And I was going to say new normal, but I don't like saying that anymore, given the last 5 years.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, it's going to be your normal now, and it's it's just going to be the thing you do.
I love that. I recently released a video called The Navy SEAL Way to Carnivore. And here in the US, we have the Navy SEALs. My son's in the Marine Corps. And so he's gone through that boot camp. He's not a SEAL, but I'm very familiar with that. And that's their whole philosophy. It's like they're constantly, the drill sergeants or whatever they're called, are constantly trying to break you down and get you to ring the bell. If you're in the pool, ring the bell. That means you're done. Like that's you surrendering, that you give up. And so they teach them the mindset of it is that you just have to get through each segment of the day. You get up and you go to physical training. All you're thinking about is getting through that hour of physical training. Then you go eat. All you're thinking about is eating as much and as fast as you can, because that's how they do it. And that's what they teach them to do, because it's just like what you said. If you look out, the long haul and thinking, how am I going to get to my first year, 365 days? You just have to make it to your first meal to start with. So I love that you
Mm.
bring that up. And it's like the consistency chain. Whether it's a red check mark on a calendar or something, just start doing that. I made it today. And what you don't want to do is break that consistency chain, because then you have to start all over again. And that can be deflating.
And that brings up an important point as well, is if you do have a day where whatever happens, you're stressed and you have that donut, or you have that bit of bread, or you have that sweet drink from Starbucks, whatever it is, um, and you've broken it, don't beat yourself up. Just go, I did it, it's over, back on the wagon. Because if you start beating yourself up, you get into the same cycle that I spoke about before, which is this: I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm useless. I messed up. What's the point? I obviously can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And it just spirals out of control. And before long, you're lying under a box of donuts, you know? So it's just get back on the wagon immediately.
I love that. It's so true. One of the other things I tell people is, make a plan, start with a plan, prep and have a plan, but plan for your failures too, because we very seldom do that. If you'll plan ahead for your failures, how you're going to treat yourself, talk to yourself, what you're going to do if you do slip up, you're going to be much more likely, A, to not slip up, but B, if you do, you're not going to throw in the towel and think, oh, that's it. I quit. I can't
Mm,
do
mm,
this.
mm, mm, mm. Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many distractions. It's just so easy to do in life generally, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, keeping yourself on track and just getting back on the wagon is really important.
it is. Well, Dave, thanks so much for your time and all your wisdom and your insights and sharing your story. Tell everyone how they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube. The name of the channel is No Carb Life. And the handle is at zero carb. So if you search on either of those, my wide open, gaping, surprised mouth will pop up and you'll find my channel that way.
Great. Any final thoughts?
Just do it, just give it a try. That's the most important thing. Give it a try, because you do not know how good you can feel because you've been under an ultra processed cloud your whole life.
That's a good place to end it. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right, health warriors, what did you think? Again, subscribe to the channel, drop me a comment below, and let me know what your favorite takeaway was. And I ask you, do you feel like you've been lied to? Wherever you live in the world, do you feel like the food sources that you have are quality? Do you feel like the food science and the food marketing that's been fed to you, pun intended, is accurate? And how do you feel about journeying into a more low carb, no carb, animal based, ancestral style of eating? Again, I'm Jackie Almer. Thanks so much for spending this time with me and Dave today.